Well, that took a moment. Hello, everyone. To people just joining, to people who have been waiting, and to everyone watching things back on the VOD, whether it's here on Twitch or on YouTube, depending on when you're watching this. Hello, welcome back to another stream, and welcome back to Game Dev Sunday. I'm aware that I didn't do this last week because, of course, as I've already mentioned, it was a pretty emotional time for me last week. So I thought, you know what? It feels like it would be a good time to just sort of take it slow, try and think of how I'm gonna do things for the next time it rolls around, and so on. And yep, pretty much it. And we're back this week with Game Dev Sunday. Though I will make a mention, as I had already mentioned in the Discord, though I hadn't properly mentioned on stream. No, I had mentioned it on stream, but I hadn't mentioned it for a while. After today, a I'll be taking the coming week off of streams just to sort of relax, slow down, especially given the nature of the coming week, though I won't say any more than that. But I'll be taking some time off over the next week because I've been going at it non-stop since since basically after the end of August. Um so I'll be taking a bit of a break, and I'll possibly be using that break to, I mean, aside from just relaxing and slowing down from things, just to actually try and think of some ideas for things, whether that's other things to try and do on stream or other videos to try and work on, or literally anything else aside from that. That's my intention for part of how I'm going to use that time off from streaming. Though bear in mind I will just be back to doing it on the 14th of April. It's only like a little temporary, like 1 week thing, but yes. The last time that we were working on this project in particular, if I if I reflect on some things, we did some other bits of the heads up display. We focused on polishing up things with the collectible stuff and the health and so on and so forth. However, there's still one glaring thing that is kind of a bit of an issue, and that issue is to do with lives themselves. So I need to throw on the Spyro music too, because I haven't done that as of yet. I will say though, things will probably be a little bit low energy today, though to be fair, that's kind of the general vibe of game dev streams anyway, but more so than normal, a little bit of like low energy today, if that's okay. But in terms of where we're currently at with some stuff, the problem that we're trying to... The problem that we're trying to address is in relation to health within the attribute set. And just to go over a little bit of a refresher for people who may not have been here for a while, or people just joining for the first time and probably don't have any idea what I'm talking about, because there's the possibility that if you're watching this, you may not be game dev, or at the very least, a programmer. In terms of how we're handling things within this project, stuff like abilities and unlocking them, and health and so on, we're handling that using Unreal Engine's gameplay ability system, which allows for, honestly, like, a very dynamic setup of, like, a set of, like, moves or abilities or properties that a player or any other character has access to. And attribute sets are an important part of that, because you can define a set of attributes, hence the name, but you can define them as, like, different data types and to represent different things, say health, or if we're looking at, say, an RPG kind of game, say health, mana, max health, max mana, and so on and so forth. However, the thing that we are trying to sort out is with regards to what happens when the object itself has reached 0 health. Now, the reason for this is because while in other projects, for the most part, well, I say for the most part, definitely across most, if not all of them, in other projects, how I would have handled health in the past is that I would have just had it be applied individually to, like, each object, like, or each class. So the player would have its own health, enemies would have their own health, and I would use interfaces and such to essentially interact with that. However, with attributes, or with the ability system and attribute sets, and gameplay effects, which are little things that can be applied to a given object that has... that is basically can be affected by it. For example, if I was to go into the... I don't need those. To be fair, I probably will need them, but I don't need them at the moment for this explanation. Where did I put projectile base? Base projectile there. So if I actually also go into the engine as well, so I can do this in 2 parts, because this is essentially shared in 2 parts, or shared across 2 parts, if that makes sense. And I know it is somewhat redundant, but especially for people who may or may not have been keeping up this whole time, or for people who may have been keeping up this whole time, but this is a good little refresher as well, because considering the fact that I didn't do this stuff last week, it is nice to keep myself and my brain refreshed on everything. So, yes, I am doing this not only for people who are just joining for the first time, or people who have not been here for a while, I'm also doing this for myself so I can keep my brain refreshed. Okay? Cool. Anyway, so with this projectile, which inherits from this class that we have right here, which is the base projectile class, we have a projectile body which essentially has the things set to overlap, so that when it overlaps with any particular object, it will call this. However, the one thing that we check first before doing anything else here is we check whether or not the object that it has overlap with is not the actor that owns this. And the reason I do this is so that if I was to say fire the projectile from the player, normally where I have things set up is that the projectile is spawned from a point that's very close to the player, for example, and so this essentially prevents it so that we're firing the projectile, and it prevents it from basically just detecting the player immediately as it's shot out, and then being like, oh, we've overlapped with something, we've overlapped with a thing that we can apply damage to, and then it just destroys itself. This essentially acts as like a little failsafe, so it doesn't actually just kill whatever object owns it, or whatever object spawned it, if that makes sense. But yes, we're checking to see if the thing that it collides with is not the object that spawned it. If that's true, then first we try calling damage character. Though to be fair, this should actually be called knockback or knockback character, because this actually isn't the thing that we're using to deal damage. This is the thing that we're using to apply knockback to the object in question. So who knows, maybe at some point I'll actually go over things, refactor things, and make sure that this is properly named, especially considering the fact that this quote-unquote damage interface, again, is not currently used to damage things, or it used to be, but we're not using that to damage things anymore. So if we go into Rider, I don't think it will open the interface class from that. Where is interaction? Damage interface. Wait, that's the CPP. I need the H. Damage interface. Oh gosh. That's better. Gosh. Don't know why, I'm all phlegmy and, like, clogged up a little bit. Right, anyway, so this method within the interface, we essentially broadcast a message to whatever object that we've, or whatever, like, object that we've overlapped with. Of course, the damage causer is the projectile itself, and then we have the knockback modifier and whatnot. And that's basically, if I can recall correctly, we're essentially using this to, or passing in the damage causer in this case, to say, oh yeah, this is the object that's applying damage, so we can work out what direction we need to fling the player or enemy in, and then apply the knockback that way using the knockback modifier. And if that object does implement the interface, then we will actually properly call this method. But if not, then again, that just doesn't happen. And then after this, we apply the gameplay effect to the target. So what this essentially does is we have a target actor, which of course is whatever we overlap with, and then we have a gameplay effect class, which we have called damage gameplay effect. This is merely a variable. The actual value for the damage gameplay effect is GE_applied damage. Now, if we go into the content browser and go here, we have gameplay effects. Gameplay effects, again, there are multiple different types of, like, durations for gameplay effects. There is instant, which is just applied instantly, and that's kind of like a permanent thing. Infinite just constantly applies over, like, a given set amount of time. Like, you can have it apply, like, endlessly as long as, like, say, for example, a player is stood inside a flame or inside, like, poison, swamp, or so on. And you can remove... an infinite gameplay effect, but you have to remove it manually. But yes, as long as like an infinite gameplay effect has not been removed, then it will essentially keep being applied to an object at a given rate. Then there is like just the has duration, which means like, oh, this gameplay effect happens for this however this long, and also again, much like infinite gameplay effects, happens like at a given rate, so it could happen for like a maximum of 10 seconds with it being applied every 2 seconds, for example. So it would be applied either 5 times, or if you choose a setting with a duration or infinite gameplay effect where you can say, oh, as soon as it's applied, or as soon as the effect has been like added to like the list of effects that an object has, then you could just say, oh, as soon as this has been like added to the list, also apply whatever effect that is supposed to be applied here. Then that would just result in 6 times instead of 5. Gosh. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Most important thing is that this gameplay effect in particular is targeting the health attribute within our custom attribute set. We're using the add modifier because there's like no subtract modifier. Like there's add, there's multiply, there's divide, there's override, which essentially replaces that value. And I do not know what invalid does. I have no idea. But we add the value with, essentially, we have multiple options. We have a scalable float, we have it based on another attribute, or we can use a custom calculation class, which we don't really need at the moment, for anything at the moment, and I don't know if we'll ever need it at all for this project, but it is nice to sort of like keep in mind that we can have like a whole sort of like formula for working out a given like calculation for a gameplay effect. However, in this case, we just have a simple scalable float, a simple float value, and then we just add -1, which is how much damage this projectile will do. But yes, we take this, we have this set as the value for damage gameplay effect, and this is passed into apply gameplay effect to target. Then we go back into the code, because I need to explain the other part of this. We go here, and this is the method that's being called from the blueprint. So again, it takes in the target actor, and it takes in that gameplay effect class. First, we go, we check if there is an ability system component on that target actor. Of course, there wouldn't be like an ability system component on, say, a wall or a pillar or an environmental object normally, or something along those lines. So we would essentially say, we're checking to see if it has this. If it doesn't have this, which in most cases, unless it's like an actual character that needs to use this, then it won't have it, then we just return. We don't do anything else here. If it's successful, for the sake of just making sure that things are working, I just have this here saying, oh, the ability system component was found on the target. Then we check whether or not this gameplay effect class has a value set for it. If it doesn't, then we just force a crash, essentially. We don't do anything else here. We create an effect context handle using the target's ability system, or the target ability system component, and create an effect context. And then we add the source object. So this projectile itself is the source object. Then, after making the effect context handle, we make the effect spec handle, which we use the gameplay effect class, the level of that gameplay effect, which I believe I've explained previously and have explained multiple times before, but gameplay effects themselves can have different levels, and then you can have, say, a different degree of the effect applied to an object depending on what the level is. So say level 1 is like, oh, it takes 1 damage, level 2 it takes 2 damage, level 3, you could just have that suddenly jump to say, oh, the object in question will take 5 damage, and so on and so forth. And this gameplay effect spec that we're making, essentially, we're using the ability system component, or the target ability system component to make this. We pass in the gameplay effect class, we're passing in the level, and then we're passing in that effect context handle that we just made. And then once we have this effect spec handle, we just say, oh, the active effect handle, we just apply the gameplay effect to that target ASC using apply gameplay effect spec to self, and then we just get the data from the effect spec handle. And then once that's, once that is done, that essentially does what that effect does. So in terms of, say, for example, the player state, because the player state for our player is the thing that belongs to the player that has the ability system component. So in the case of when this projectile gets the player state's ability system component, oh, what have I done? No, I did not mean to do that. In terms of when the projectile gets the player state's ability system component, it does all of that stuff, and then on the player state itself, it will apply that effect, and then it will take whatever attribute set that belongs to this object. So we have an attribute set on this object as well, and we will reduce this object's attribute set's health. Now that I've gone through that long-winded explanation of what the hell, how we're handling health and whatnot, the problem is that since we are using attribute sets for health, and we have a unified method of providing health to objects that need to have health, the problem is that how are we going to check whether or not a specific object is essentially dead? We need to check whether or not a specific object is essentially dead. We need to see if a particular instance has lost all of their health. And the one thing I had considered previously, was to try using either a dynamic or just a regular multicast delegate. Now, on paper, this appears to be a good idea. On paper, it appears to be a very great idea, in fact. I thought it was a good idea at first when I thought about it a few weeks back. However, it is a not good idea. It is a bad idea. It will not work, considering the fact that the way that multicast delegates work is that when a multicast delegate is broadcast to, any and all objects that subscribe to it essentially have their, like, whatever is bound to it, like, whatever method they have that's bound to it, called. Now, if we were doing something simple, like broadcasting information to, say, a UI or thing within the HUD, that's fine. Like, if we were only using it for that, that's fine. However, there is a significant problem when we try to broadcast the fact that, this health within the attribute set is now 0, when we're trying to broadcast that to everything that has bound to that delegate. So, say, the player and every single enemy character to begin with. And the reason why that's a problem is, say, for example, the enemy was the one that died, or an enemy was the one that died. If we were to say, oh, the enemy has died, broadcast this to everything that has it, without any other checks, what would essentially happen is basically, like, without any other checks, every other enemy would die if we were to say, like, we broadcast to the enemy, and the enemy, like, method that's bound to this basically says, oh, just destroy this object. Because there's no check to say, oh, it's, like, is this enemy dead? No, it's not. Then it would destroy every single enemy on the screen. That's one problem. The second is that since we would also not be checking whether or not the player is the one that has lost all of their health, they would essentially say, oh, the player has died, game over, reload the scene, which is bad. That would be a pain to just have you in the middle of stuff and then suddenly be like, oh, an enemy died? Yeah, let's restart the scene. That would suck. So part of my thing this week, between, like, last week when I didn't, like, run Game Dev Sunday, and, or basically between, like, within the past 2 weeks, is trying to find a way to properly sort of, do this, and I have something of an idea in mind. Like, I'd probably go back to using a delegate, but I would implement extra checks to make sure that we could at the very least use a delegate for the time being as essentially a patchwork until a proper solution is found, if that makes sense. It wouldn't be the most ideal solution. I have already said that it's not an ideal solution unless there are proper checks involved. With proper checks involved, it still wouldn't be the most ideal solution. In fact, it probably would be less than optimal. But it would be better than just having no solution to show for it within the past 2 weeks of me saying, yeah, I'm gonna look into this, and then be like, ugh. That and general life stuff has had me too busy to be able to properly focus on getting stuff done. So that is kind of my fault, but also things cannot be helped. So but yes, it is a bit of a conundrum, but we're gonna try it again. So now, the thing I have in mind for my checks is if I make it a multiple parameter delegate. So we're going to go into the attribute set, and we're going to go up here, going to declare multicast delegate. I don't know if I should opt for one param or two. I should probably opt for one param. Oh, whoops. A actor pointer. Oh, delegate name. Oh wait, F. Health 0. Signature. And then a actor pointer as the param 1 type. And the thing that I had learned the last time that we were doing this is the fact that with dynamic multicast delegates, or dynamic delegates in general, you need to actually provide not just the name of the delegate, type, you also, like, as well as, like, defining the type for the parameter, you need to define the name of the parameter, whereas with regular delegates, so whether that's just regular, like, single cast delegates or regular multicast delegates, regardless of, like, either one of those, you don't have to define the name of the parameter, which is good. But that was a bit of a thing. The thing that we need to do now is U property. I don't know if we actually need a U property, but this is... excuse me? Hello? What is going on? What? F health 0 signature. And we're going to call this just called it F or health 0 signature. Now, unable to find class delegate enumel struct with the name F health 0 signal. Huh? Odd. So it's right. So the error says unable to find class delegate enumel struct with name. There's a thing I might have forgotten. Hold on. The closest place would be dot broadcast. Right. Go to declaration or usage. No, there shouldn't be any problems unless I need to. Weird. It's a unique problem. This is a unique problem. This is weird. So if I go F signature. Oh, that's probably why. I don't know if that actually makes a difference, but it should. Think. Ah! Wait. Or is it an Unreal header tool error? Oh wait, no, dynamic. Oh, single delegate or simple delegates can't be. Right, that was my fault. Okay. So this cannot have a U property. Right. Now I remember. So. Health 0 signature dot broadcast, and then I'll pass in this. Wait. Cannot. Oh wait. Okay, I thought I had it in mind. Now I realize, wait, UTP attribute set probably doesn't work in this case. Also, I just realized I need to go quickly sort out something. I will be right back in just a few moments, so hang on tight, chat. Right, and we're back. Sorry about that, chat. Now, Now I have to wonder. So I look at the attribute set. So it's a U attribute set, not a... Now, if I look at this, a health error signature. Hold on, actually. Considering that this already inherits from a U attribute set. An attribute set is a pointer itself. Wait a minute. Ooh. U attribute set. So now broadcasting and sending this works. Because I realized, wait, it would be way easier if I just checked whether or not, one, the attribute set that's being sent through was this, and two, the attribute set, or, wait a minute. Hold on, hold on, it's potentially big brain moment, but I need to give it a little bit more of a moment to stew in my brain. And if this works, then we at the very least have a temporary solution until I work out how to do this properly. Right, okay. Cool. So, right, as I said, we can send this through via... Now, if I go into the player state, for example, go into the player state, and in the overlay widget controller, we have that. Right, let me think. So, if we were to say... Wait, actually, I can condense this down into just the if. So if I say if this... Because this still works in the same way as saying, oh, this on one line and then doing the if statement check on another line. So this kind of condenses things down a tad, and I like that a lot. I've always liked that a bit. So if this is true, then we say tpas dot health zero signature dot add. I can't remember if I can actually do this with a simple delegate. Because it has been a few weeks, and so add lambda to simple delegate. I mean, at the very least, I'm getting so confused. I can't remember if it is or isn't possible, so I'm going to have to wing it. Hold on. I'm just confusing myself. Let me think. I think first things first, I'd need to make a U function for this. U function, just say that so it's not like, just at the very least so this can be registered. It will say void health handle. So there's either so I'm trying to think, handle player death, handle health 0 might be a bit more of an apt name for this. So handle health 0. Whoops, I'm gonna undo generate definition because I need to add a U attribute set. Yeah, that's forward declared up there. So I need a U attribute set parameter pointer in attribute set. So in attribute set is that parameter name. So the thing I need to double check is so health 0 signature dot add. Oh, UTP player state. No, ATP player state. Handle. God, right. There's a video for this. So it still might come down to using bind bind lambda. Just refreshing my memory of it, because again, it may actually have to be bind lambda. Or add lambda. So this, then oh wait, actually I need to throw that on the end. There we go. And then throw in a UTP attribute set pointer handle health 0 AS. And now we're going to have to double check whether or not this is going to work. Also, I need to close the engine for compiling the code. So, handle health 0. What I want to have happen first is I want to make sure that this works. So, UE underscore log temp warning text. I'm going to say health is now 0. Just a simple little statement which helps. And now we're going to compile. Also, I apologize profusely if I sound like I am very scatterbrained at the moment. I generally am a little scatterbrained at the moment, and that's never a good thing. But I'm doing my best. Ah, lordy lord. Oh, okay, that did not compile. That says where what? Invoke no matching overloaded function found. What does this I mean, it could be from this. Unreal Engine. I'm trying to think of any other resources I find only use like multicast delegates, which is kind of annoying. Like, I understand that multicast delegates are like a generally widely used thing, but at the same time, some people, or in some cases, it will be better to just use a regular, simple, bog standard delegate. But then again, I may have to make it a multicast delegate because supposedly they are the easiest to use. Or a dynamic multicast delegate, I mean. Declare dynamic multicast delegate and then I need to actually define the name. So in attribute set. And then within the attribute set, that is still this, so it's just this. Yep, no, so that was done for that and that and that. Right. Also, ad break start in 2 minutes, chat. So EPAS. Health zero signature dot add dynamic, because then I can add dynamic and say this, and then ATP player state handle health 0. And that is probably the easiest bloody way of doing it, and I don't know why I didn't do it sooner. God, what is up with me today? Today's just one of those days. It's been an off day. I woke up late for work, I woke up late. I overslept, which is not a good thing. Never a good thing to happen, and it's just... that set my mood for the day, and I haven't really been able to take the time to just kind of slow down and, like, calm whatever nerves I had, or whatever, like, stuff was happening with me. Like, ugh. Right. Anywho, code's compiled. That should be all sorted. So now we're going to quickly, actually, yeah, we're going to quickly test whether or not this is working as intended. So we're going to go to this enemy. I'm going to go here. This is going to take a few moments. Yep, it is now saying health is now 0, so that works. Anyway, ad break is starting. We will be back in a few minutes, so hang on tight and we will be back soon. Right, and we are back. Hello. Right, so as we saw, it is working. It is working at the very least with the player side of things. So, what I want to do now, I want to go back into the code, of course. So now that we say that the health is now 0, what we need to do is first we check whether or not the attribute set is the same as this one. So, I mean, first things first, I'll cast it to the so if I say UTP attribute set pointer TPAS equals cast UTP attribute set, and then we're throwing in the in attribute set, so the attribute set that we're passing into this method. Before anything, I do want to make sure that I mean, it will be anyway, but I'm just going to run the check anyway. So if EPAS is equal to null pointer, then return. Whoops. Because then we don't want to do anything else there. So now that we've got that, so first we say if in attribute set is equal to this. So we're checking, is the attribute set that we're receiving into this method the same as this one? Or no, not same as this, is equal to attribute set. So is the attribute set that we're receiving through this method the same as the one that this player state has? So the one that belongs to this player state. If it is, that's one of our conditions. The other one is if TPAS get health attribute. I don't know if this returns like dot yeah, this returns float is less than or equal to 0.0f. So this is the check that we're making. So if the attribute set that we receive into this method is the same as the one in the thing, and I know this is kind of redundant because we're essentially... No, wait, no, this isn't redundant. This is actually necessary, right? So if the two attributes are the same, so if the one that we receive in the method is the same as the one that belongs to this player state, and the attribute set itself cast as the specific like custom attribute set, if the health is less than or equal to 0, then we want to handle lives and such. So for example, we're not going to reload the scene yet because it is important that we make sure that this whole part of the UI works. And also, this is kind of good to set up for the enemies too. So not only are we essentially setting this up for the sake of having the HUD fully functional, and not just only having like 3 parts of it functional, but we're also going to make sure that this functions for the player as well. Or for the player lives, I mean, sorry. Anyway, so lives count minus minus. And I, at the moment, do not have anything that can broadcast to... So the overlay widget controller... Oh, good lord, what? Oh wait, no, I have it here. So ATP, player state... Right, so I need specifically... a multicast delegate. Yep, there we go. Oh, wait, that was how I did it over... Oh, I'm so upset. Oh, God. Right. But to be fair, I probably would need this to be blueprint assignable. Oh wait, overlay widget controller, the CPP file is right here. Right, now I remember, so dot broadcast incoming info. Right. Okay, now I remember. So on fruit collected was in here. So right. So declare multicast delegate 1 param f on life lost int 32, and then we say f on life lost, and then we say on life lost. And then in the, yep, there we go. We have the dynamic multicast delegate here within the overlay widget controller. So declare dynamic multicast delegate 1 param f on life lost signature int new lives count. And then we have a blueprint assignable, so we can actually send it to the HUD widget. So blueprint assignable category player attributes, and then f on life lost signature on life lost. And then within this area, we already have the player state assigned. So we go here, we say pp player state on life lost dot add lambda, and we have this as for the in functor, and we add a const int 32 reference life count. Oh, wait, that's not supposed to be in there. Whoops. So we put that there. Go for a good old semicolon, and then say on life lost dot broadcast life count. Okay, so we have this side of it. Now we need to actually sort things out within the player state. So yeah, it was this dot broadcast. On life lost dot broadcast, and then lives count. Should probably also make sure before anything else that I also close the engine again, because I forgot to do that after the last time, which I really should have done, but it happens. It happens, chat. But yeah, no, I've been doing a whole bunch more of stuff like with Monster Hunter since the stream the other day. I've been trying to grind out Mizutsune and Zoshia more, and I genuinely like the charge blade that Zoshia gives you because of the skill that it has, which is, there is a chance to just deal, like, an additional hit of damage, which it's not too much damage, but because of, like, with how charge blade functions, with Savage Axe, and how many hits you can possibly proc it on with how often you just do that stuff. It's a cool weapon. I like the Zoshia Charge Blade. I like how all the Zoshia weapons look. Although I still can't get over the fact that the hammer for that monster, it's just a fucking cube. It's just a huge block. But yeah, no, I'm having fun with that stuff. I'm also just generally trying to, like, get new drip as well on the game, and just try and see, ooh, this could work, or this could work, or this could look super fucking cool. Sorry, just a moment, I'm, sorting out a message on my phone. But yes, I've been doing that stuff. I've been trying to get more drip. I've been trying to figure out some more things like build-wise and all that jazz. I've been trying to catch up with backlogs of games that I have not, like, properly played. I've been trying to play more Xenoblade Chronicles X, which I have been doing. I've been doing that progressively, again, as usual. Again, and as I said before, there's just so much to do. There's just so much to do. It's crazy. Let me think. Legacy system component. See, now I've gone over, like, talking about stuff, and now I've got myself distracted. It's when we have handle health 0, when we actually lose a life. Then we broadcast that, which then goes to the overlay widget controller, because we have this bound to that particular delegate, and then this broadcasts on life lost to whatever is bound to this, and in this case it will be the actual widget itself. So we have things sorted on this side within the code. Now, unable to find class with name on life lost signature. Why? I thought I made it a dynamic multicast delegate. I thought I made it a dynamic multicast delegate, but apparently in the autofill, I just went, or accidentally, automatically went for just a simple delegate for whatever reason. That is mildly silly. Right, engine is open. Now, going back into the overlay itself, widgets, overlay, WBP overlay. No, wait, actually, we need to go into the lives, go to life counter, because we need to do what we did with the other parts of the widget, or the overlay itself. So if we go here, we have the event widget controller set, which across all parts of the overlay essentially serves as a means of just saying, yeah, the widget controller has been set, so make sure we set up everything else in order for this thing to function as intended. So, event, widget controller set. So, again, first things first, we need to make a BP overlay widget controller variable. So, BP overlay widget controller adds a simple little storage for a reference. BP overlay widget controller. There we go. And it's kind of redundant me repeatedly saying this, but you know what I mean. Get widget controller cast to BP overlay widget controller. We have to do this as a sequence so we can do like all of this at the same time rather than doing it in sequence, because it's a bit more performant and efficient this way. And I'm sorting this thing out. Report. Spam, scam, scam, bots. Sending spam/scam links. There we go. It's so annoying always having to constantly deal with them. Anyway, sequence. So we can do things one after another. Then we cast to this, set this using the result of this if it was successful, and then we only need to bind to one thing using the overlay widget controller. So get bind to on life lost. Custom event on life lost event. And what we would need to do is basically just say, where is the text? I did not make this a variable, which is kind of annoying. So life count, no, lives count text. So get lives count text. I might be wrong here. Where is the collectibles? So we have the collectible count here. Then it is set the text. set text. So string append. So if we look at the live count, so we have the X and then we have the space and then the value, just like with the collectible count. So if we go into the live counter, we go back into the event graph, we go, hold on, is it a capital X? I think it's a lowercase. A lowercase x, and then add a space afterwards, and then convert that to string, and then do to text string. And now this should be done. So let's quickly test this little tidbit out again, because we need to make sure this is properly working now. Oh, that is not supposed to happen. Why is it being set to -1? I think lives count may not actually be initialized with, like, I think it's set to 0. Hold on. If I go... Wait, hold on. I should probably actually make sure I save in the engine. I know everything was saved, but I'm just double checking just to be sure. Going to close the engine. Then go into the player state. The thing that I never did, so if I go down, we have a variable called lives count. I need to remove this because I don't need this to do here anymore, because we've added hit points into the attribute set. We have that all set up. We do not have a default value set for the lives count, which I can do from the class defaults for the player state. However, I'm also going to do it here. So, lives count, and then bracket 3. So we have this initialized within the constructor at a value of 3. So if we do this now, right. Okay, so the engine's open again. This should actually, you know, not behave incorrectly this time around. So we're just gonna have to be fair, I should have set the damage to be like just an instant kill, just so I could test this a lot faster, but right. We have now lost a life, and now we have lost another life because we haven't, you know, reset the player's health to the default. At the moment. So yeah, but we are now able to lose lives, though nothing actually happens right now. But I will set that up. We just have this part of the HUD fully functioning, and now, for all intents and purposes, all elements of the HUD function. We have our collectibles working. Of course, you can already see, or you have already seen, that we have our health working, and now we have our lives working, or at the very least, the lives counter. In terms of the actual response to losing a life, I will need to sort that out, because it is vital that things are handled with care to prevent, like, oh, the scene is reloaded, and we have loaded whatever things the player has collected, but oh wait, hold on, we haven't stored how many lives the player is supposed to have. Uh-oh, they're back up to 3 lives instead of being reduced to 2. So, you know, it's important. It's important. Though, I will say, though, I would probably make it so that it is not up, or the life count is not updated until after a scene reloads, because, hey, it's, in most examples, at the very least, from what I can tell, say, such as Banjo-Kazooie and Spyro and Super Mario 64 and stuff, the life counter itself is not actually updated until after, like, until after the scene reloads, basically. That's essentially what happens. I would need to actually handle this slightly differently in terms of how the information is displayed, but for all intents and purposes, for making sure this thing actually works, this is good, this is great. So, yes, at the moment, all elements of the HUD work now, which is great, so things are slowly taking shape. Now, the other part of this, while I was mainly doing this for making sure that, you know, the HUD works and such, I also would like to sort out things on the enemy side, because, of course, the enemies being destroyed properly is very important to the gameplay itself. But there is another thing that we need to consider. So I should have Clip Studio open, and yes, I still have the owl in the references from the last time I was doing, like, enemy concept art stuff, even though that was, like, a very brief part of the last time I did that. So we hop in here, we open a new canvas, we're doing the stuff, doing the thing, bada bing, bada boom. Oh yeah, no. Now I remember. Right. The thing that I want to have happen, so rather than like, hold on, my brain has just gone completely blank. Okay, no. Now I remember, right. So rather than just, like, say, for example, for sake of argument, this is the player, this evil, like, thing that looks like Hollow Knight Silk Song is the enemy, and we shoot a projectile at it, so, and it's on, like, say, 1 health and whatnot. Now, if we were to just do this, like, as is, we would essentially only have the player left. I also, somehow, in the second drawing of the player, drew them without a neck. I do not know how I managed that, but I did it. Anyway, we would have no enemy left. We would just have the player stood there. Nothing happened, like, in any dynamic sense with the enemy. They just, poof, popped out of existence. So, if I just draw, like, a cloud of dust or smoke to just say, oh, they're gone now. Nothing cool or interesting or anything like that happened with the enemy. They're just gone. But if I were to write what I want, and this is the thing that happens in Spyro at the very least. It doesn't necessarily happen in in the Banjo games, because a different thing happens in the Banjo games. Either they're completely squashed, or when an enemy dies, it just breaks into pieces. Which is kind of crazy. Now that I think about it, it's kind of brutal for Banjo-Kazooie. It's actually kind of brutal that in some cases when you defeat an enemy, they just break into pieces. Consider how, like, other enemies belonging to that same species must feel when they see, like, their friend or, like, brother or whatnot get clobbered by some fuck-ass bear and bird, and suddenly they just go and break into pieces. That's crazy. It's actually kind of morbid. So what I want, instead of, like, it just disappearing, I'm basically doing this whole sequence again, but with, like, an extra step in the middle. So what I want is player throws projectile at enemy, for example. The same thing would happen with the charge, but I'm just doing this for the sake of making it easy. Again, the enemy is just represented by this thing that looks like Hollow Knight Silksong. Where is it? There we go. Icy Peak. I like the song. Like, in terms of, like, between the original trilogy of the Spyro games, like, of course, I have bias towards Spyro 3, because that was the one I grew up with, but I definitely say, like, 2 and 3 have better, like, soundtracks compared to the first game, because... Gosh, sorry about that. Thinking about how... Oh, God, Lord, what have I done? Why is that there? What have I done? What did I get wrong? For some reason, Stream Elements chat is being weird. What the fuck happened there? Oh, what the fuck happened? Wait. Oh, Lord, where is it? Why are you so wide? What did I do? That's not supposed to be like that! Right, we've reined you in. We've reined you in, Heater. Like, on the normal thing, it's perfectly fine. I don't know what the hell happened there. Oh. No fun allowed. But that happened. Oh, gosh. I was not expecting... I thought... God, I thought things were okay on, like, this scene. Who is Pac-Man Headman? I'm using them to represent the enemy in the diagram that I'm drawing. I also refer to them as fucking Hollow Knight Silksong because... it's what I thought it looked like, but what I want instead is, instead of them just poofing and disappearing when they die, I want the enemy to get flung away. Like, flung back with knockback, and then I just realized I would need to go down here to finish the diagram. Whee! Basically. And then they disappear and poof into non-existence. Yes. But genuinely today has been a scatterbrained day. I woke up late for work, and I feel like me getting so worked up and panicky about that just kind of set my overall mood and vibe for the day. I don't know where my head is screwed on at the moment. And it's kind of concerning. I got myself so worked up, and then continue to get myself worked up at work trying to make sure I can work through customers quickly because I was on tills the entire day. So I've really not been making myself feel good today. That's not a good thing to do. But at the very least, I got the bloody Minecraft meal from McDonald's, and I got fucking the bloody McDonald's helmet. The fucking McDonald's helmet. Why is this a thing? It's a thing that exists, and you won't believe this. It also came with a code to use in Bedrock Edition to give the helmet as a character customization option. Like, imagine just, like, going onto Bedrock, going onto some random-ass server, and you see a bunch of people who don't have any of the McDonald's stuff, and you roll on up with the McDonald's fry hat. The Grimace egg had a code too? Oh really? What did it give you, like a little hat thing for the Grimace egg? It's like a funny little reflective card with a little like illustration of the helmet. And of course, the one thing that I did as like an Instagram story post was I posted a picture of the bloody helmet, and I said, "Do you think it's stronger than Netherite?" Oh, it gives us... Ooh! But do you think that the Minecraft Fry helmet is stronger than Netherite? Do you think the McDonald's helmet is strong? You can become Grimace. And then your shake, which I don't know what it's made from, aside from maybe berries, and hopefully not the blood of Grimace. You can spread it to other people, and they may become Grimace, or they may die. This is a running theory, this is a headcanon, this is maybe lore, I don't fucking... Grimace... No. No. I think Grimace has something to worry about. If that is purple, I think he needs to go to the doctors to get that checked out. It might be a problem. And it also might be contagious if he shares it with other people. Why not? You're white and so is yours. That seems normal. That's not how it works! That's not how that works! That's not how that works! I'm just gonna say, could you please fucking clip that here? Because I fucking... Oh god. Oh god, that broke my head. If my head hadn't already been broken by today, that just kind of broke me. But to be fair, I kind of need it. Oh lord. Oh fucking Jesus. Just my brain is brokey. Lord. But anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, no, now I remember. So instead of like killing enemy and then them immediately just poofing and disappearing into non-existence, what I want is kill enemy or bring enemy to 0 health. Oh, sorry. Then just say, hey, fling them back with the knockback, and then have them disappear. Now, the thing that I'm thinking about is it would probably require a fair amount of tweaking and adjusting and doing stuff and things and stuff. So, but also with how my brain feels today, that may take me a bit of time because I'm just generally the scatterbrained man. I'm not the scat man, I am the scatterbrained man. And I'm not doing skibbidibidim dub 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 dub. I am in suffering. Oh, right. But yes, I will take this at a pace that works for my silly little brain. Thank you, here. Thank you very much. I'm hoping you also threw that in the... I can do that. I can throw the link into the Discord too. Never mind, you beat me to it. Right. Thank you very much. I needed that. Thank you. Right. Okay. Whoops, I did not mean to go back to the starting soon screen. Good lord. What is going on? I know what's going on. Ugh. But yes, just as a little update here, and for anyone else. Oh boy, it's starting soon, long after I've already started. Holy shit. But yes, because as we know, like the collectible stuff and the health already worked, and then like the little health trail also worked. The life counter now also works. But as I said earlier, I do need to sort out the actual logic of when the player dies, we restart the scene and whatnot. But that will take some time. But the other thing I need to sort out is actually the enemies dying properly. Because if I was to kill this enemy, help, hello? Oh wait, actually, it already does that. Never mind, it already does that. But in a way that is different from actually using the attribute. Wait a minute. Hold on, wait. I need to check what happens with the enemy and when they land, because it's been a while since I sorted that out. So if I go into TP enemy, applied knockback, land. If B is dying, B is... Okay, right. So that's the thing that I need to. I'm gonna go make tea BRB. Okay, Heater, have a good tea sip. So okay, so health zero signature dot broadcast. Yep, right. So in the enemy itself, hold on. Let me get my brain all in gear. Controller, behavior tree. Or is it in the enemy controller? It's not in the enemy controller, I don't think. Right, there might be a thing that I'm missing with the enemy itself. Hold on. No. Let me think. I don't know why. I also just have the habit of just like chewing my hand when I'm trying to think. That is just a thing I do. I am trying to rack my brain and think like, what do I do? And then just like nom, 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 onto my hand. I don't know why that's become like a habit that I do, but it is a thing that I do. Gosh. Yes. So enemy inherits from a character. If I look at the project that I was learning from, and I go into the source or public character, and then enemy base is the thing that I'm looking for from this other project. Notepad. Virtual void, init ability, actor info. Right, it does not have that stuff, right? And then there was another class that I actually have as the common. I'm gonna get rid of the player state for now because I don't need that right now. I don't need this at the moment and I don't need to have the projectile base open because I've done my little explanations of things earlier. And also the overlay widget controller, I don't need that open now because I've done everything that I need to do for the HUD for the time being. Until we get to actually, having the animations play for bringing elements of the HUD in. But we'll get to that eventually. We're just taking time with it at the moment. Okay. So Right. Brain. Right, so there are things that I need to add to the enemy as well. So, in the enemy, I need to add in the protected section. No, wait, actually, you know what? I'm going to do this completely differently. Right. And this is going to be a whole... I feel like this may potentially be a whole chain of refactoring. So I'm going to bring the engine back up. Gonna go into C++ classes. And I'm gonna make it here because it's gonna be within the same areas like the enemy and the player character, and I'm not moving everything around at this point. So we're gonna go new C++ class. I'm gonna make a new character class, and this is going to be TP character base. Oh wait, apparently I'm already using this. Am I? Have I made a character base? Apparently I have. Oh. Oh wait, no, that's ATP character base. Oh, ad break starts in 3 minutes. Get attribute set. Get ability system component. Go into player character. I don't know if I did this on the player itself. I did! Apparently I did! Right, so I did this for the player, but I did not do this for the enemy, or for the base enemy class. So I'm gonna say ATP character base. Use ATP character base. There we go. So of course we already have stuff from like character as well. However, we now also gain access to the ability system component and the attribute set variables which are defined within the character base. I can't believe that I completely forgot to do this way back when, but I'm doing it now, so shh. Sorry. Anyway, what needs to happen now is within the enemy class, and this is a very key step. I don't know why I'm not in like the window specifically for Rider. I don't know why I wasn't doing that. So in the protected section, which is all the way over here, we're gonna have virtual void init. We don't have init ability active info here. Uh-oh. Init ability active info. Character base. Get attributes there. I did not do that. Uh-oh. So within the protected section, we need init ability. Oh. Virtual void init, oh, whoops, init ability character info. And I get the feeling that if we go into the player character, like, I'm gonna have to take a whole browse through different folders and files and stuff. Private character base, open with notepad. So, right, within the character base, we don't want init ability actor info to do anything. I also think, yeah, it's ad break time, so we'll be back in a few minutes, chat. Oh wait, am I in the right place? I am. I also realised that somehow I never turned the add in progress text on. Anyway, regardless, we're back. Okay, so there are things that I'm realising that I didn't hook up. So, first things first, I need to move... Oh, I accidentally disconnected my headset from my speaker. Huh. Anyway, A thing that I realized is that I need to throw init ability actor info within the protected section. And this is within the player character. This is a thing that I had also done incorrectly as well, because I had never defined it within the character base. So, first things first, we throw this here. We do virtual void init ability actor info override. Then in the player character, we say super init ability actor info. So we call the base version, even though we don't have anything happening in the base version of the method. We're just doing this anyway. Just in case we ever add anything like extra to that, and then we just have whatever we already had happen within the player character version. So I'm gonna get rid of that, so we've sorted that out. And then within the enemy, we also need to define, so virtual void init ability actor info override. Do this, and then within the enemy version, we need to initialize whatever the hell happens with them. So rightfully, what should be happening within the constructor as well, we should be defining an ability system component for the enemy. So ability system component equals create default subobject, which is a UTP base ability system component text, and we just call this ability system comp. So mild refactoring is happening, and also mild adjustments to things that should have existed but didn't exist up until now being made. So of course, ability system comp set is replicated, even though this isn't necessary, we're setting this to true. And then ability system comp replication mode gameplay effect replication mode minimal, because we don't need it full, we just need it to be the absolute minimum. And then we also just do the same with the attribute set. So attribute set equals create default subobject UTP attribute set text, and then just call it attribute set. Now, in the enemy's begin play, we also need to, after this, initialize the ability actor info. So init ability actor info, and then within their version of it, so ability system comp init ability actor info, this, so this is the owner, but and this is also the avatar actor that represents it, and then cast ATP ability. It was ATP. No, it was UTP base ability system comp. Whoops. Ability system comp and then we just say ability actor info set. So this has been set, this has been all like initialized, and we can do whatever we need to do within the enemy's ability actor info. So that's one thing. And the reason why we're sorting this out is because the thing that I never realized that we didn't do was set up the attribute set to actually do things with, like, setting the health to 0. So, so once we do this as well, we do need to set the delegate. And if we go back into the player state CPP, if past UTP attribute set attribute set if UTP attribute set pointer PPAS equals this. So if this is successfully cast as this and back, ended up taking a bit longer than expected. That's okay. Right, so if this can be cast to this type, then we get to bind the delegate. We get to make sure that this can do this as well. So TPAS health 0 signature dot add dynamic. And then we need our own method, so, or the enemy needs its own method. So this, and then we just do a protected method, make it a U function, because we need this, otherwise it can't be added. Void handle health 0. So void handle health 0, and then that will take in U. Just to double check. Yep, it was a U attribute set, not the UTP attribute set. U attribute set pointer in attribute set, and then we define this, and then whatever we need to have happen here, we'll just do that. But for now, I'm making sure that this is sort of, but that's being weird again. It does that every so often. Anyway, that needs to be sorted within the begin play. Yep. So ATP underscore enemy handle health 0. Right. So now, once again, we need to say, hey, if we need to cast it first. So UTP attribute set pointer TPAS equals cast in UTP attribute set in attribute set, and then first we say, oh, is the attribute set that's, you know, being thrown in here equal to this one? So first we do that, and then we also check if TPAS get health is less than or equal to 0, and then whatever we need to do for the enemy we will do here. So in the enemy's the damage character implementation, we have B is dying here. We don't need this here now. We can just move this. And we can move this in here. So B is dying is true. And then we set the blackboard component for the enemy controller's value of B is dying to true, so it doesn't do anything else. It just stops moving or trying to do anything else in response to, say, seeing the player and whatnot. And that essentially has higher priority over everything else. But then everything else should happen as normal. We hit the enemy. Wait a minute. Sorry. We hit the enemy and we send them not like flying back, and then they die. Basically that should happen. God, sorry about that, chat. Now I'm going to. I've already closed the engine. We're going to recompile the code again, and we're going to see whether or not this properly works as intended with how we've adjusted the system. Build fair term does not evaluate to a function taking one argument. 22. Wait, the replication mod? What? Huh? Yeah, that's 22, so... Oh, it's not replication mode. Set replication mode. Silly me. That was completely on me. Right. Much better. We got that to compile this time. Cool. While that is doing that, I may as well take important stuff to help me breathe and live, because that is always a good thing. I will say though, the one thing that I do think I miss from being younger is having tablets that you could chew instead of, you know, having to have the tablets that you swallow. I don't know why, I just miss those days. I guess because, like, you know, less hassle and, you know, way back when I used to be proper squeamish. Still am slightly squeamish, but not so much as I used to be. But also, sometimes the chewable tablets you get had, like, a nice, like, aftertaste to them. If that makes sense. They used to have, like, a very nice, like, a nice little sweet aftertaste to them, depending on the one you had. It's an odd thing. It's an odd thing. Right. So this should still work. Okay, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay, right, now I see the problem. It's because the enemy now also has 5 health, which is not good. Because that's not what I want for most enemies. What I want most enemies to have is to die in a single hit. So... A thing that I also need to now define is default values for the attributes, which will be helpful. So if I go into the good old code, oh, ow, sorry about that. and we go for a forward declaration of U gameplay effect, because we're going to need this in order to do as we want. Oh, gosh, there we go. Anyway, you... No, I'll define this after, because I want this to just at the very least be its own thing. U property, blueprint, read only, edit anywhere, category, and we want this to just be called attributes. We're going to have a T subclass of, because this is the only way that we can actually have a gameplay effect be a custom thing that we can use within a C++ class, as with the one that's applied via the projectile. U gameplay effect, and we are going to call this default attributes. Now, what this essentially is when the game starts, whatever, like, default, like, values are for, say, the health and whatnot, that is what should be set as the default. Like, say, when we start a new game and the default, like, health and max health should be, like, say, or for the player at the very least should be 5 and such, then we just write those into a gameplay effect that we apply specifically to the player, and then we just have it be applied via the character base, I believe. Yes. Yeah, because we also make another method too as part of this, and we throw that in the protected section. So I don't know why I went to the CPP file. So first we need void apply effect to self, because we need to actually be able to apply the gameplay effect that we're using here. So T subclass of U gameplay effect, gameplay effect class, and then float level, because we still need the level for the gameplay effect. And then here, beneath it, we have initialize default attributes. I did not put I forgot, and then we just make this const. And I forgot we also make this other method const as well. So define this, and then define this. Define this sounds like something you would just yell at a person that you don't like, or that you're trying to, like, have a little witty retort for shit for. Now that I think about it. But yes, define those two things, and then for apply effect to self, first we need to check is valid get ability system component. I'm guessing because this is an incomplete, yep. We needed, yep, okay, cool, it didn't include it here, good. It included it within the CPP file, good. How many times can I say good? I don't know, but it's good. So first we check whether or not the ability system component is valid. So whether or not, say, the enemy or player that derives from this class actually has that all set up. So if it does return true for valid, then we just continue. If not, then it forces a crash. Then we check the... Okay, Ryder is having a moment where it's frozen. Don't know why, it just does that. Then we're checking the gameplay effect class, just to make sure that we've populated this variable, or whatever is being sent into this is valid. So if it is valid, then we continue. If not, then it forces a crash, again, as I said. Then we create the context handle. Using the ability system component. Make effect context, and then context handle, we add this as sort whoops. Dot add source object. We're adding this object itself as the source because we're just applying the effect to itself. That's all we're doing. And then we're getting a const f gameplay effect spec handle for the actual gameplay effect spec handle equals get ability system component, make outgoing spec, and again we use the gameplay effect class that we're passing in. So in this case it would be the default attributes, or default attribute, or to be fair, we are setting the default health and max health, so it is attributes plural, and then the context handle that we just made. And then get ability system component, apply gameplay effect to self. Oh, gameplay effect spec to target. Whoops. And then we need to get the data from the spec handle. So spec handle.data.get. And then we also just need to apply it to the target, which is the get ability system component. And then here within initialize default attributes, we just say, oh hey, whoopsie days. How did I get rid of the other curly brace? I have no idea. Apply effect to self, and it will be default attributes. And then we also need to supply the level, which in this case will just be 1. There's no other level of, like, default attributes that we actually need. We just need 1. That's all we need. So now I'm trying to remember where initialize default attributes is called from. For the player at the very least. Let me think. La da 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 da. It would be within the player's like init ability actor info. That's what it would need to be. So if we go back into the player character.cpp, why did I right click it? I don't need to right click it. And I already had this marked here for like way earlier for when I eventually got around to this. So initialize default attributes. And then we set up like the player's default health and max health and stuff. I don't need all of my note stuff now because I have remembered. So for that, I believe it's done from this side of things, at the very least. So now we need to recompile, and if we throw up an error, then we will find out what it is, and we will stomp it into the ground, because errors are not good for stuff, but it is good to learn from them too. But at the same time, they do hold things up and cause problems depending on how bad of an error they are. Lordy. Also, I just realised, I know it probably hasn't happened, like, in the Midlands within England, because, you know, the Midlands are later. Or it happens for the Midlands later, but it's already Easter holidays within my area, which is kind of crazy. I thought it was going to be more time before the Easter holidays, but I guess I was wrong. But 'tis all good, 'tis all good. It just means time off. Easter holidays are this week for our schools. Right, so it hasn't become Easter holidays yet, but it is Easter holidays around here now. Like, all, like, the local schools and stuff have broken up for the Easter holidays around here, so that means, oh good golly gosh, going around town is going to be a nightmare for the 2 weeks now, because it's like, oh, the little shits are out of school. And some of them do not cause a nuisance, and others just decide to be the absolute worst people for whatever reason. I guess they just, every day they wake up on the wrong side of bed, and they wake up and choose violence at the expense of so many other people. But yes, what is it that I need to do now? Yes, gameplay effects. I remembered what I need to do in the middle of that tangent. I am so good at this. Right, so we need now is gameplay effects, combat attributes. And I'm going to do a thing here and say default attributes within the attributes folder. Just in case we need any other subfolders within the attributes folder itself. So blueprint class, game, play, gameplay effect. So here we're going to have GE underscore default player attributes. And then I'm going to make another one and say, no, wait, actually, I will set up the players one first, and then I'll duplicate it, and then make the adjustments for, like, the common enemy. So, GE, default player, attributes, and then I'm going to have it be... going to have an instant gameplay effect. So, instant policy. It's going to be... We're going to have a modifier. We're going to... It's not set. I believe it's override. From my memory, I think it's override because we are setting a value. So... We're going to set... health. So for the player, we're going to set the health. We're going to override it. So we're going to set the health to 5, which is our default. And then we're going to add another modifier for the player, and that's going to be max health. And then we're going to override it, and we're just going to... set it to 5. Although I could probably also have it, like, Or set the max health and then set the health based on the max health, I believe. Hold on. Let me say set max health. Override. Attribute based magnitude, coefficient 1, da 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 da. Backing attribute to capture. Or I'm just gonna do it as a scalable float and not confuse myself. I'm just gonna do it this way, just so I'm not confusing myself. Okay, so we're setting the health, and we're setting the max health within this default gameplay, or default player attributes gameplay effect. Now, I'm going to duplicate this, and instead of default player attributes, we're just going to say default common enemy attributes. Because then we're going to have common enemies, but then eventually later down the line, we're going to have bosses. And we'll need a gameplay, we may need a gameplay effect for each individual boss that says, oh hey, this boss will have this much health and this much health. Or this much max health and this much health and whatnot. So, same thing happens with the common enemy, except we set the health and we set the max health to just 1. That's all we do. Now, if we go into the blueprints, first for the player, search, default attributes, gameplay effect, default player attributes. And then we go into the blueprints, enemies, and I'm going to need this for the it's grounded enemy and yeah, they're both grounded enemies, right? I forgot that I was not using the enemy patroller and I was just using the temp grounded enemy just for the whole thing now. So I'm gonna say default attributes, we're gonna say default common enemy attributes. So now, if I have done this correctly, and there are no problems, right, so far so good. Now, if I go to this enemy and I shoot at them, okay, something has gone wrong. I don't think, oh wait, no, actually, I don't have it calling that method within the enemy itself. Whoops! So within the enemy, I think it would also be after this stuff within the in the ability actor info as well. Just to refresh my memory, let me look at my notes stuff again. Okay, no, I never got it. I didn't get that far within that thing yet. So, initialize default attributes. So, need to make sure that the engine first has every file saved. Which is good, I've done that already, but I'm just double checking just to be sure. Close the engine. Recompile. And damn, imagine if I or someone else was crazy enough to go through every single game dev stream that I've done. Not just the Sunday ones, but the ones where I used to do it more often during, like, break streams, and just say, oh, hey, how many times have I said, let's recompile, or let's close the engine, or stuff like that? Like, that would be crazy. That would be absolute psychopathy, in my opinion, but I would also commend the effort. Like, that would just stray into absolute sheer lunacy. But I would also have to give my respect to the crazy bastard or bitch or person who does that. We're inclusive here. We're inclusive here. Right. So now... Okay, never mind. That crashed the engine. Gameplay effect class. TP... Assertion failed. TP character base, enemy line 61. Okay, odd. Okay, I didn't actually properly look at the whole... I should have looked at the whole area. Okay, so... Let me just get the arrow back up again. So, we have... so, within... TP character base, line 37... Enemy line 61. Line 61 is... What? That ain't right. Assertion failed. Gameplay effect class. Begin play. So weird. Right. Right, initialize default attributes. I'm hoping that it actually isn't the fact that this line is mildly incompatible with the end. This shouldn't be a problem. But we're going to find out. We're going to learn. We are going to figure this out. And people watching things back. So, back into the engine. So if I click play, this should work. Yeah, this works. Right, so it is, for some reason, it is that line. It is, like, trying to initialize default values, but then I thought I... Ground enemy. Oh, wait, I realize it's the flying enemy as well. Default common enemy attributes. I forgot that the flying enemy existed too. Right, okay, we found it. It was a slight oversight from my end. Right, so... No, I don't want to debug. I want to close. Right. So now I can add this line back in. That was completely my own fault. And now we can recompile again. Now that the engine is open, this should work now. There we go. Right, I should also make... I could have just pressed F1 and Shift to do that, but, effort. But, let's see. This should fully work. Yay! Right. And now this should also do the same for this enemy. They are dead. Cool. Right. So now that works within the realms of using the gameplay ability system and using gameplay effects to apply damage to the enemy and then having them die, but also setting like default values, which like now that I think about it, it's a big thing to be able to do that, because now instead of just like having absolutely every enemy share like say the same health, or you know having to always set it within like, oh, setting this value to be this like number and whatnot, we could just have the gameplay effect and just apply that across like a large number of enemies, and then say if we needed specific values for bosses and whatnot, we can create gameplay effects specifically meant for them to set their health and whatnot. And that is a useful tool to have. And I also dropped my controller, which probably also made that move. So yes, that is a cool thing to have sorted out. Okay, so we're going to slow down a little bit. We're going to go back into Clip Studio because we need to go over the things that we have managed to do so far, even if it's like not too much. It's just to get my thoughts together. Right, so we're going to have done and we're going to have to do. Right, so life counter. So done, life counter, 0 health responses. And then we've also got default attributes set up too. Why am I like this? So we have our life counter now. We have responses to like enemies or players having 0 health, and we have that individually. And then we have the ability to set the default attributes for, say, the player and all the enemies and whatnot too, which is great. That's a great thing to have. So now, the next thing, like not the immediate next thing that we have to do, but one of the things that we have to do next is, so we have to address scene reloads. So additional data, or the additional data needs to be saved. And I'm going to detail this now here because it would make sense to sort of like discuss what the hell am I talking about when it concerns like the extra data. So, as I've mentioned earlier, when the player dies, while I am displaying like, the health counter or the life counter like changes instantly when the player has like been dropped to 0 HP. Now, as I have already said, sorry, in most other games, this isn't like necessarily the case. Normally, what would happen is that the player would, or it would play the player's death animation, it would fade to black or do whatever it would do, like a screen transition and whatnot, and then it would reload the level, and then also change like the life counter to say, say the player had 3 lives, they died, now they have 2 and So that's one thing. So we need to store new life counter. In save game. And 2, the other thing that we also need to be mindful of is the fact that, yes, we have default values that the player has for like their health and whatnot. However, we would also say, for example, if the player had found like health upgrades and stuff, or completed like certain milestones in the game that would grant a health increase, we would need to store. So when health upgraded, store new max HP. Because otherwise, if we were to just not... If we were to... Sorry about that, again. Oh, gosh. If we were to just entirely forego saving, like, any changes to the max HP to the save data, and we just, you know, loaded in, like, or reloaded in the scene, or loaded save games and whatnot from the main menu, then we would just lose any and all changes that were made to the player's max HP. Like, say, for example, they went from a maximum of 5 to a maximum of 8, and then they loaded in to the, like, the level they were last in before they closed the game. What would essentially happen is that, my health is no longer 8 HP, it is back to its default of 5. What the hell happened there? And if we were following the same logic with what we've already done with our collectibles, where once we've found like a given collectible within a given space, we check or we set that particular object to be inactive. If we were to do that, then whatever object or milestone or whatever that the player was trying to find to regain that health increase would no longer be accessible, and would make it impossible to get back to what their health was. So we would need to make sure that we store what their current max HP is. And in a way, I was originally thinking, oh, we'll store their current HP as well. However, I don't think we would do that. We would just essentially store their max HP, and then when they load either from the main menu or, of course, the obvious one, when we reload the scene after the player dies, we would set their current HP to be their max HP, basically. So when the health is upgraded, we just store the new max HP. We will automatically do that either when that happens or when the... No, we'll do that when that happens, just to avoid, like, the possibility of, the player is dead. We're gonna try and save the data. Nope, we're just reloading without saving the data, and now we've lost that extra HP. We need to make sure that it's done as soon as like any like upgrades and stuff are acquired, just so the data is kept current, if that makes sense. Oh lord. But yes, so we need to address scene reloads in that sense. Hold on, my brain is just, decided to kind of like shut down in its entirety for a moment. No! Not good! This is not good at all. Sorry. Okay, right. So there's scene reloads. I'm trying to think. Let me look at my little sheet of what I would actually need in terms of the prototype, just so I can re-gear my brain towards what I need to, you know, actually work towards. So let us see. Right. Game dev prototype prerequisites. There we go. That's it. So, sound effects, music, save system. We don't have an actual level yet. I haven't done music or any sound effects at all. Player character model plus animations. We've done the player character model for the most part, aside from making additional changes. And then we're working on enemy designs. We don't... like, we haven't settled on any solid, like, level ideas or themes. We have a set for what we've... from where we've been drawing, like, ideas for enemy concept art. But, you know, nothing aside from that, if that makes sense. So... I wouldn't necessarily say that that's where we need to work towards next. I think there's some other little tidbits that we need to sort out on a technical side of things. And again, I feel like it may be possible to actually, like, do, like, more of the visual side of things, if that makes sense. Gosh. Just thinking about it. Think. Though, I guess to be fair, thinking about potential, like, aside from enemies themselves, thinking of potential, say, hazards would also be a good idea. Like, potential, like, obstacles and objects that could also cause the player harm, or in some cases cause instant death. That's also a good thing to possibly consider. So, right, I'm going to say that another thing on the list of stuff that we could do and stuff is consider potential environment hazards. So consider potential environment hazards. So say, for example, like lava pits, or pitfalls, or bottomless, like, pits around the world, or, like, sludge, or some kind of thing that spits fire, or some explosions, or stuff like that. Those are potential environment hazards and whatnot. As, like, examples. Though, maybe I will try and think of something completely different. Who knows? So, scene reloads, which, of course, it probably wouldn't take long to go over, like, adding some stuff to, like, the saving and loading. Though, it's definitely, as I said before, with how my head is feeling today, it will definitely take me a little bit of time to actually get it all in order. Gosh, sorry about that. But yeah, Also, ad breaks are just about starting, so I'm going to take the ad break to think about how I'm going to do this, because I know what it is I need to do, it's just the how that I need to get in order. But we will be back in a few minutes, so hang on tight, chat. There we go. Right. I went on the wrong screen. Right, we're back. Okay. So in terms of how we're doing this, again, I'm going to take my time with this because, as I said, I know what it is that needs to be done. And it's the how that will take a bit of time because of how my brain is feeling at the moment and as a whole today. So I'm going to. Go into Rider. Go to declarations or usage. No. You game save data, that's the one. Go to declarations or usages. Go here. Say your property, edit anywhere, blueprint, read only. We're gonna say int. I need to check if go to just so I can forcibly open this. Yep, lives count is also an int32, right? So int32 lives count. And then in the player state where we're saving, we're going to say save game lives count equals lives count. One second, loaded. I'm gonna say. Actually, now I realize it, or now I think about it, calling it on F on life lost is not accurate. So F on life lives changed. So F on lives changed. I should also close the engine too while I'm doing this. So I'm gonna make another method, and it will be another protected method. We're gonna say, wait, hold on, it was, where is it? I don't think I'll do Nancy the Ice Dancer because that will be stupid, annoying. I said I wasn't doing that one. We're doing Spooky Swamp. Or like the last little half an hour or so. I'll do it as a protected method here instead. So void load life count int 2. So load life count, and then oh yeah, no, now I remember. So load life count, save subsystem, recently accessed save, lives count, That's all I need here. And then in load life count, say life count equal lives count equal life count, and then on life, I need to rename this as well. So instead of like on life lost, it'll be on lives changed. So on lives changed, and then in here, and then I need to go into the overlay widget controller too. So on lives changed dot broadcast life count. So in widget controller, overlay widget controller, I need the C++. Yeah, on lives changed. And I think I also would like to change the name here too. So go to implement declarational usages. And then on lives. So this will be on lives change signature, and then in the actual just because this name, with how it's not just for when lives are lost, but also when the live count is loaded, that name makes more sense, in my opinion. So lives count, there we go, and then it was load life count, then it's broadcast, and so on and so forth, and yada 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 yada. Now, as far as I'm aware, this should be perfectly fine. Righty-ho. Oh yeah, because I renamed. Oh wait, hold on. I didn't switch back to the editor. I renamed stuff. Bind event on life lost. So it needs to be bind event to. Oh wait, whoops. Bind event to on lives changed. Custom event on lives changed event. Right, now that is resolved. Right, sorted. So, I don't have a proper way of testing this at the moment. But we will be able to test it eventually once I get enemies actually set up within the level environment. Let me think. Oh yeah, the health. The health. The health is the other part, right. Now, I'm not entirely certain of the proper way to do that, because I might be completely wrong in what I'm assuming would be a good way of doing this, if that makes sense. It all depends. Right. So I had the game save data. I don't know why I did. Data. Game save data. Right. So I'm not 100% certain on how I would properly do this. As I said, I may be entirely wrong. Definitely 100% possibly wrong. It all depends. So my whole thought was view property, edit anywhere, blueprint, read only, float, player max health. And as I said, I don't know if this is actually a good way of doing this, but I'm going to do it this way for the time being until I know of the proper way to store this. But player max health is stored here. On save, where is the... That's on save game loaded, on save started. Save game player max health equals, and because this is the player state, we have the attribute set. So cast UTP attribute set get max health. And then, of course, I'd need to do another little... Oh, gosh. Void load player health float. Right. Oh, good lord. What is up with me? Ouch. Right, so... Oh, whoopsie daisy, I knocked my mic. So low player health, say... Cast... UTP attribute set... Attribute set... set... And then set max health. To be fair, I should probably do set max health first. There we go. Now, compiling this should all be in order now. Not entirely, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It's in place for the most part. Right. Okay, so I've gotten that sorted. Right. I know this is somewhat earlier than normal for Game Dev Sunday, but I'm going to call things there for today because I am my brain is feeling blah 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 blah. However, to everyone who showed up and to everyone watching things back on the VOD, whether it's here on Twitch or on YouTube, depending on when you're watching this, thank you ever so much for being here. I really appreciate it. As I've already mentioned earlier, and I will mention again, this coming week, I will be taking the week off, the whole week off from streams, just to take time off, relax, especially given, like, the nature of this week as a whole. And in that time, I'm hoping that in the midst of relaxing and stuff, I can think of ideas for other things that I could do either on stream or for videos or for anything in general. Who knows? I'm not 100% certain, but that's, you know, the whole dealio with a lot of things. You don't know what happens, but you just do things anyway. But yes, I will be back with streams on the 14th of April. We'll be getting back to just doing stuff normally, though it will still be another break stream, because I've only done the one on Friday, so 14th of April, that will be a break stream. As for what I'm doing that day, I am not sure yet, but I will figure things out definitely before then. And if not, then I don't know what's wrong with me. But yes, thank you ever so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And as always, I will see you all again in the very next one. And I'll see you on the 14th of April. So until then, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye!